I'll have to say one of the biggest moments for me in the Enhancing Leadership Program has been the sense of confidence that I've really gained. I feel I had the confidence at one point and had just kind of stumbled along into running into a bunch of roadblocks. So the opportunity to participate in this program was really exciting to me. And I think the thing that really hit home is when we did the 360 feedback. For me, that just instantly gave me that confidence back. There were some roadblocks and hurdles and struggles that I was going through at the time, and I still wasn't sure if this was the right program or if I was on the right path, or just lots of questions. So when we did that piece that month, that was huge. Reading through that, being able to walk the path at Rampart with another leader, we kind of paired off and were able to discuss the feedback we got, how we felt about that, process it out loud. That was huge. For me, that was the moment of, I am on the right path. I can do this. Nothing is impossible. Move the hurdle, keep going. Just realizing that your other leaders in that program with you were going through their own hurdles and their own roadblocks, and that we were all in this together for the purpose of learning and moving forward was really huge for me. Realizing you're not alone in a process, I think makes a huge difference, which is also why I feel I lead as part of the team, not in front of them, because I think that support and being part of that team is really what helps everyone work well together and have the confidence to speak up and have the ideas and think outside the box and push forward to ultimately get to that end result and that end goal. And for us, for me, it was the confidence, building the confidence. For someone else in our program, it may have been something else, but they were able to kind of get there, all of us together, supporting one another, continue to supporting one another. I really look forward to kind of the connections we've made, those relationships we've built, and using those to push forward onto the next thing and onto the next leadership role.
My biggest takeaway from the Enhancing Leadership Program was at the zoo, believe it or not. We were prompted to reflect on who we saw that day, who did we see that day? And then we were further asked the question, did we see ourselves today? And for me, being a supervisor and being a success coach, I always notice what everyone else does well. I notice everything that they do, I'm giving them praise, and I often never really see myself. So for me, that was the biggest thing I took away, is to notice what I do on a daily basis that is positive, that I do well, instead of always focusing on the negative things that I didn't get done or the things that I messed up on. I'm just really reflecting on the good qualities that I have that make me an exceptional member to Pike in college.
All right, so my biggest takeaway was actually during session 7, the leading and motivating a team exercise. And that was way back in March, right before the pandemic hit. And it was something that was really impactful on me, especially as an aspiring leader. I think we came into that meeting not really knowing what was happening, not only really within ELP, just because there was a lot of uncertainty outside of our little world, but also as employees or as myself and things like that. I think what Ashley and Christy did that day was an amazing application of a lot of the things we had learned throughout the whole program, resiliency, flexibility, those sorts of things that really applied to what we were learning. And we just came in, and instead of actually following a script right off the bat, they said, let's sit down and talk. There's a lot of uncertainty going on. And we did. For like 3 hours straight, we talked about a lot of the perceptions going on, about our fears and anxieties. And I think that's something as a leader I took away. You know, I really wanted to grow as a person who was understanding and empathetic to those, and really have a listening ear. And I think that's what my biggest takeaway that day is it showed us how we can apply what we're learning and become true leaders within our fields.
If I were to pick one of the biggest lessons I learned from our leadership program, it was just developing a better sense of self-awareness throughout the entirety, through the different lessons that we had each month. One of the biggest lessons I learned was through a strengths-based assessment that we took. And I had the ability to not only see my strengths, but the strengths of the cohort and our group, and seeing how all of those interacted. That really built a great foundation for me to start seeing how to work better with teams and seeing how even my values and how my strengths interacted with others. And going into the program, that was actually one of the biggest things that I wanted to learn. Working at such a big college, it's interesting working with teams in different departments, and having that ability to develop that better sense of self-awareness is really putting me in a better position in my career and with working with so many different people. In addition to just developing this better sense of self-awareness, I also love the opportunity to network with others, first working with such a tight-knit group throughout the course of the year, and then also through our shadowing opportunities with different leadership members. All of these experiences really deepened my perspective on the workplace and working with others, and I'm just incredibly thankful for the opportunity and the support from our leadership team. So thank you for supporting this program. A huge thanks to Ashley and Christy for being fantastic leaders.
I've greatly enjoyed my time during this leadership program. There are some aspects of it that I absolutely loved, and one of those is the relationships that I've been able to develop. This has allowed us to develop professional relationships, but not within our departments or in our particular job roles. And there's one example that I have, and that's with Jill and Davina, who are also in this program. They are literally on the other side of a wall from me. We're in the same essential area, and I knew what departments they were in, but I didn't know what they did. I didn't know how they were impacting students. I didn't know how our two positions could fit well with one another. But I learned those things through the networking opportunities that this program allowed.
Hello. Perhaps my biggest takeaway from participating in the Enhancing Leadership Program was the realization that I have already been a leader, but that I lacked some of the vocabulary to describe it in a coherent philosophy. At my previous job and here at Pikes Peak Community College, I found myself frequently engaged in activities that I could best describe as building bridges and demolishing silo walls, navigating domains of territorialism and finding ways for credit to be shared by individuals and teams. I really enjoy helping organizations unleash the collaborative, synergetic potential that too often goes unrealized. I accomplish this by forming connections with other departments, divisions, and areas of an organization. When I see or hear about another department's initiative to which my department can contribute, I'm keen to reach out and offer. When I feel that I could benefit from expertise or assistance elsewhere in my institution, I'll reach out and ask. Within a department, the same sort of harmony and synergy can be achieved when employees' strengths and weaknesses are matched in ways that fill gaps in skills, proficiencies, and interests across the team. I realized that I have already been using some of these leadership skills before I even entered the program. And when I think back to search and screen committees that I've chaired, designed to find more members to add to my own team, I begin with self-reflection and I identify my own strengths and weaknesses so that I can seek candidates who will bring contributions and perspectives that differ from my own.
The leadership training has been remarkable. I've developed relationships with employees throughout different departments and now can reach out to them for assistance or to offer my own. My biggest takeaway from this is that I'm more confident. Prior to this course, I've usually had the right answers, but I wouldn't sell it to the best of my ability. The peer review really opened my eyes. I received mostly raving reviews, but I just needed the little extra kick of confidence to become a great leader. Ever since then, I feel my confidence building. I believe my staff and supervisors have seen my improvement.
My aha moment came when I realized I didn't need to change my leadership style to be a great leader. I learned that I already possess a lot of these skills, and through an understanding, I can create a framework for personal development. This really came to light during my 360-degree feedback. I gained an understanding of how people perceive me, and this inspired me to realize I don't need to change my leadership skills, just develop them to become a better leader.
I have been asked to discuss some of my most impactful takeaways from our Enhancing Leadership Program, and I was not able to come up with just one, so I'm going to discuss several of the takeaways and kind of go in a chronological order of the program. So the first impactful takeaway that I had was in November of 2019, we were up at Rampart Range, and Joe Byer and I did a walk around the campus and discussed our leadership philosophies and some things going on in both of our worlds. And that was a very enjoyable exercise and time together. The next one was when I shadowed Clint Garcia in December of 2019. He obviously is the director of facilities here at Pikes Peak Community College, and I gained a great deal of insight regarding our facilities process and just the overall operation of facilities. So it was very, very impactful to me. In January of this year, of 2020, we did some personal health and welfare programs where Ashley did a meditation exercise that was extremely meaningful to me. And also we had Gary Walker discuss journaling and some different ways of setting up a journaling. And then a part of that day that I also remembered was the Eleanor Roosevelt quote that we worked on: "You must do the things you cannot do." So all those things were very meaningful that day in January. And more generally, just meeting so many others in this cohort from all over the college have just been really, really insightful to me, gives me a huge understanding of the overall of the college and what great people that we have here to work with and to reach out to. And finally, what's still going on is our capstone project with Carrie Riffey, and we're also working with Dr. Regina Lewis, and we're going to be addressing the Courageous Conversations program here. And Regina Lewis was actually the second shadowing person that I had wanted to shadow and was unable to officially. So now I'm actually working with her on this program, and it'll continue. So it's just an opportunity to serve the college. And I think it's just going to be very worthwhile. So I want to thank the Enhancing Leadership Program, specifically Ashley and Christy and all the people in our cohort. Thank you.
All right, I guess the biggest takeaway for me from the Enhancing Leadership Program is really the importance of communication. Communication as a leader is not just giving instructions, giving directions, telling them where to go, and giving the outcome. It's kind of enhancing those relationships, getting something out of it, letting them figure things out through the interaction. And I guess that's another way to put it, is that communication is the interaction. We did the 360 peer review, and it really came back that I had a lot of expectations, but not a lot laid out. It's one of the messages that really came through. Between that and meeting one-on-one with Ashley Dutton during the program, it's more speaking out and in fostering. It's something we did every single week. We kind of had directions on what we wanted, basically the outline of our subjects, but we didn't say how we got there until the very end. We did a reflection, and every single meeting we had kind of showed that what we were supposed to learn, we learned through the process and communicating and working one-on-one with our teammates through our, be it group work or one-on-one, even journaling was all about organizing yourself to let it come out from there. And that's just communication. It's, again, the difference between a management and a leadership style is giving directions versus interacting and playing from there, playing off everybody's strengths and letting them interact outside of orders, if you will.
My biggest takeaway was realizing my potential. About halfway through the Enhancing Leadership Program, we did an escape room with the cohort, which I was so excited about. And we, did it. We didn't escape, unfortunately, but it was good team building. And at the end, we got some feedback. And I remember somebody telling me that I'm a quiet leader. I'm like, no, wait, me a leader? That's not right. So then later, it kept sticking in my head. So I kept thinking about it. Okay, am I a leader? Am I not? And then I realized I am a leader, like just in my own way. There's not a mold that makes a leader. Like everybody's the same. We're not, we're all different. And I realized that I was making my own mold, glittery and pink and everything like that. But it's my own mold. And I realized that I am a leader, and that going through this program has made me realize that. And it's an amazing feeling that to know that, yes, I am a leader. And even if, letting other people talk first, getting their opinions, but then offering my opinion of, being creative and, my point of view. But I think it's been great, and having this program made me the best employee I can be and being a leader.
Throughout the ELP program, there have been so many lessons that I learned and so many interesting tools about our leadership that added to our leadership toolboxes. However, for me, the most important lesson was that from Keith Barnes regarding culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion at Pikes Peak Community College. Until Keith's one-on-one face-to-face lesson, I just really didn't understand everything about culture and diversity, equity, and inclusion at Pikes Peak Community College. I've been with the college for nearly 20 years, and I read a lot of emails from Keith, but it just really never impacted me on why it was so important. It wasn't until the face-to-face meeting with Keith that I started to understand the importance of DEI and culture at PPCC. Keith's in-person discussion was so impactful to me. During the meeting, the current culture of PPCC was revealed, as well as Dr. Bolton's thoughts and desires to enhance awareness and DEI and develop a culture of belonging at PPCC. Hearing Keith in person, it swayed my opinion about DEI and culture awareness, and it made it an important topic to me. It wasn't until after the DEI meeting that we started working on our ELP capstone project, and I began to reflect back to what Keith had talked about in the DEI meeting, and it made me want to develop a project about belonging and culture at PPCC.
My biggest takeaway is seeing myself as a leader, which is something that I've never saw in myself before. I'm empathetic in everything that I do. And I saw that as a weakness before I started this program. I actually now see it as a strength. And since accepting that, I feel like I've not only been truer to myself, but I'm better able to connect with students freely.
So for me, the biggest takeaway for the program is it highlighted the importance and meaningfulness of professional networking in the workplace. The program for me was all about relationship building. Until I joined the program, I didn't feel like I had fully fit in to PPCC or settled into the workplace where I felt comfortable and validated as a professional. But through participating, it's made me feel a lot more attached to PPCC and my coworkers. I seem to just have more positive feelings at the end of the workday, having built those relationships. I think it's made me feel more productive and driven, much more motivated at the end of the day. And I just feel like I have a good network of coworkers I can lean on when I need to.
So before this program, before the last 5 months, I would have said with confidence that people are capable of change. And now I believe a person does not really change. They just become more of themselves. So by going through this program, I have learned that the key is not changing, but really being honest with who you are. Early on, Ashley and I met, and she asked me to tell her about myself. And this was really hard. Because if you know me, if you know that I love conversation and I love connecting with people and hearing their story, being their cheerleader. But it's basically much harder to discuss yourself. So after we met, I made a list, a detailed list of who I am. And it didn't stop there. I kept learning, I kept being honest with myself. And I found that the key is finding what your strengths are and leaning into those, but also being completely honest with yourself about what your weaknesses are, and to learn how to turn those weaknesses into something better. So I know that several of my teammates today are possibly going to be talking about how this program built great relationships, and it has. It's built amazing relationships. But strength building for relationships is one of my strengths. So basically, what have I learned? I've learned more about myself. I've learned honesty, always the way to go. That I'm my biggest kids fan, and my husband is my biggest fan. That I love bake sales. I may make 5 things instead of 1. Very possible. I've learned that I love online shopping. And I've learned that if you're my neighbor, you are probably going to be being gifted tons of Easter dinners, breads, cinnamon rolls on a regular basis. Love to laugh. I love finding humor in others. Born an introvert, I really long to be an extrovert. My biggest passions, some of my biggest possessions, are probably my 100-jar spice rack. Amazing picture of my grandfather when he was the age of 3. Every relationship I've ever had, I've built other than the one with my parents. And if you're important to me, you know it. I tell you or I show you. So what have I learned? Who I am, what I want, and what's honestly important to me.